Good morning on what is a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Wednesday the 22nd of March. I've got a nice hot cup of tea. And a package to continue unboxing. So unwrap this. What I have in here is a sheaf of issues of White Dwarf, going all the way back to issue 13. So having looked at 13, the next one I'm going to have a look at is number 14. Now this was published in September 1979 for the princely sum of 60 pence. And it includes the scenarios in here: Lair of the White Worm, RuneQuest mini scenario, White Dwarf interview with Gary Gygax, Expanding Universe Traveller editions, and we have sort of like a kind of fantastic, almost psychedelic kind of cover there. So this is about this would have been a few more months before I got into gaming. I mean, you know, August 1979 is a bit of a difficult time for me. I would have been just turned 12. My father would have just left. My parents were just separated. Wasn't entirely happy, and it would be a few months later that I heard about gaming, and then saw adverts for it in Starburst, and went and bought my first copies of Dungeons and Dragons about a year later. But I really wanted to get into it beforehand. So this is sort of a bit before my time, but it has you know, I've read all these issues before, and they have a sort of a bit of a resonance. You know, they're part of my childhood and background of gaming. So first thing noticeable, I mean, I looked at issue 3 last week, and it was kind of like, yeah, there's not a lot of advertising in here. That changes with these issues, but by sort of like 10 issues in, there's plenty of advertising in here. So we open up and we've got my adverts here for local stores: Model Workshop in Surrey, and then for Chivalry and Sorcery, and various books for that from Fantasy Games Unlimited. Big advert for Games of Liverpool, which is an importer and seller of its own right. We've got quite big coverage of games there. You know, Strange New World, Starfighter, so on, Spellmaker. I mean, games you've just you know, Sorcerer's Cave is probably the only one I recognise there, which is a fantastic dungeon game where you actually need a sports hall or gymnasium or school hall or community hall just to play it, because the space you need is so big. And list of all those games here was sort of like you would pour over to see if there's anything interesting there which you could afford, because although, for example, let's have a look, Tegel Manor was priced at £3.50. That was still a lot of money back in 1979, especially on pocket money. So Citadel Miniatures listing as well. I mean, that was miniatures, Relpather, all the figures available then. And then we have an actual advert from Judges Guild, which lists all the things that they had for on sale in '79, plus the means to subscribe, because that was their primary means of selling them. We have editorial from Ian Livingstone. And there's an interesting discussion here about the fundamental differences between American and British game conventions, difference being to the detriment of British gamers. Having just returned from Origin 79, the largest of the American conventions, so back in the day, Origins was bigger than Gen Con, and there was a lot of rivalry between the two, especially upon the part of TSR, which was running Gen Con. So yeah, essentially American conventions are saying held on university campuses, relatively expensive dormitory accommodation, and last for 3 days. Conventions must be much bigger than our conventions, and so on and so on. You know, the figures there. You've got 3,000 to 5,000 gamers attending. Gen Con now it is multiple, tens times that. If you, it's one of the places where you want to go for where the whole of the downtown Indianapolis area is filled with gamers everywhere. You see gamers. I was with friends and their 16-year-old son, and I leaned over and whispered in his ear and I said, I see gamers everywhere. And you could. It was fantastic. So Andy Slack continues expanding Universe, which is suggested additions to Traveller rules, which is launching and landing starships, failures and breakdowns, computers, engineering, extra rules for Traveller, which you could use in your own home campaign. They weren't official, much as you like. You weren't official, but yeah. So you have things like effects of nuclear weapons and explosives, artillery. Oh God, if you're using nuclear weapons. But I suppose it could come up in your, if you're running a mercenary campaign, which is one of the things that with Traveller that you would often be doing. So Fiend Factory, you have a selection of monsters curated by Don Turnbull. Many of the monsters from previous issues, similar issues, would have gone on to be in the pages of Fiend Folio. The monster supplement from TSR. I don't see anything of note here. Oh, hold on. We've got The Gazer by Charles Stross, author of the Atrocity Archive series and other books. Open Box is a is the reviews department. So we have reviews of Mercenary Book 4 and 1001 Character supplement for Traveller, for Ballastor's Barracks, for RuneQuest 2, the Dragon Crown of Skulls and Scrap Faggot Green, 2 scenarios from Judges Guild for Dungeons and Dragons. We've got an advert for miniatures from Molten Magic. You really can't see a lot of detail there, but you can kind of get the shape. They look interesting. Then we have Lair of the White Worm, one of the first few scenarios. Well, for early scenarios, because it's an early issue of the magazine. This is for RuneQuest. It's a bit of a sort of messy kind of dungeon. It's meant to be a Dragon Newt outpost, but it's not really kind of. It still feels a bit more like a dungeon, a bit of a zoo, more than anything from what I recall. Not quite as focused as the latest scenario, Jorthan's Rescue. But you've got a lot of old stats and details and so on. And it's not the sort of thing that you normally kind of get in in RuneQuest. Although you've got locations like the Big Rubble, where you might have ruined buildings and facilities which could be run as dungeon-like areas. Then we have Dragon Meat 2. This is 1979, so the first Dragon Meat, would have been a couple of years earlier. And today, Dragon Meat is still going strong. It's the big convention at the end of the year here in the UK. Treasure Chest, we have. Is open for contributions related to D&D, additional rules, character classes, magic systems, objects, tricks and traps. And here we have a series of traps and encounters and single rooms which you can drop into your dungeon. Letters, just the 3, including we've got one from Don Turnbull, and then one from Roger Musson, who also contributed earlier to Fiend Factory. Then we have, another Games Day. This is just sort of like back in the day, Games Workshop was sort of hosting. You had 2 events of the year. So let's have a look. Just flip back to that. So Saturday 25th of August 1979, we had Dragon Meet, that would have been Chelsea Old Town Hall. Games Day 5, Britain's Premier Games Convention, October, Royal Horticultural Hall, London, again both run by Games Workshop, and I would have gone to Games Day 86, that was the first one I went to, because we weren't quite ready to go to games conventions until we sort of like reached sort of like my late teens. White Dwarf interviews, not a lot of interviews in White Dwarf, it's not really best known for its interviews, but we do have an interview here with Gary Gygax. Not necessarily lengthy, it's just a couple of pages long. Help section, sorry, the news section, quite small. Again, I keep going back to you know, just how small the hobby industry was back in the day. Apart from, you know, if you think there weren't very many publishers, you had small publishers, you have those today, you just have more of them. And then we have a listing for the classified section, so help, and games clubs. So games clubs in West Drayton, Horsham, Southampton, Burnley, Rugeley, which would have been near me now, Sheffield, Merseyside, Nottingham. Turn over the page, we have an advert for Phoenix Miniatures with the Lost World of Atlantis, which were really kind of very odd miniatures in themselves. You know, and they were quite a bit of a mature audience, I would say. Leicester's Fantasy Game Shop, Dungeons and Dragons there. OgsCon, Fantasy SF Games Convention, to be run by Chris Harvey, and this would have been probably one of the first role-playing and sort of like conventions, I suppose, at Loughborough. Greenwood and Ball, another miniatures manufacturers, this based in Cleveland. Dungeons and Starships, which of course is the big gaming shop in the past for Birmingham. Advert for Estevium, Games Unlimited, Kingston upon Thames, Chaosium. We've got adverts of Chaosium, including Engage and Destroy, a miniatures game, Panzer Pranks, basically another odd war game there. Something that the Chaosium of today doesn't do. Miniature figurines, based in Southampton. Long list of miniatures there. This is just all the stockists. See, this is essentially, you know, they do this, put this out essentially all this up, and you just look at this up, you know, where's the nearest to me, or if you went on holiday, you do it. And then Games Workshop itself, based at 1 Darling Road in Hammersmith, now a dwelling, but back then a store, which I managed to get to I think a couple of times. And then on the back we've got the same advert as the previous issue for Gamma World, and you're kind of going, and there's other point it says, you know, sex does sell, but as I say, doesn't have a lot to do with Gamma World. Anyway, that is White Dwarf issue number 14 from 1979. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, do please click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you see me out here with a package containing a book or game, or in this case a sheaf of magazines and a magazine which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. Be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.